Howdy, howdy. Sorry for the delayed response. Obviously, I'm not in my car. I've had a ton on my mind. Whenever I tried to record these things, I had just taken pre-workout because the only time I'm now in my car alone is on the way to the gym. And it was really entertaining, but horrendously incoherent. So I'm here now. I was over like a couple days because obviously I don't go to the gym every day, but I go to the gym most days. But every single time I'd taken pre-workout before, and it was just comical at best. One thing I will say, for an interesting meta comment, is for all the attempted recordings, is I've been doing a ton of introspection ever since the end of school. And so all of my videos were also extremely self-centered, which I'm not so fond of. Because, like, holy crap, you're in a different continent, and that's exciting and scary and new and interesting, and I want to hear about it, and I want to, like, verbalize that I really want to hear about it. So I better be getting a video sooner rather than later telling me all the stuff that's going on over there in their first few days. Second, to kind of respond to your video, any web dev related stuff, obviously super exciting. I would definitely be a part of. I love that stuff. Unless I get a job doing web development, which is on the table because I have an interview tomorrow with a web development company here in Kelowna. So if I do a web dev job, I would probably want a little more variance on my personal project, so I might be a little more hesitant, but honestly, I'd probably still be down, just because doing stuff with you is always fun. And this whole introspective kind of headspace, the comment that got me actually was one of yours about, like, you were already kind of considering life after school, how you've kind of settled into the school life, and now you're already thinking, like, crap, I'm gonna, your school life obviously goes a year longer than mine, but you're going to be doubling your double co-op into your very last year. Is what it sounded like to me. And that means, like, you're not going to be, like, fully graduated, not a full adult, but you're going to be mostly there. And so you've kind of, like, started considering that stuff. And I was kind of like, oh crap, let me, like, consider adulting. And there were considerations about, like, so that kind of led me down the path of, like, the heuristics given to me. Kind of, it's like, do well in school, have friends, blah, blah, blah. You're a student, that's your job. And then, obviously you kind of graduate to college and that scope increases a little bit, but it's more or less the same of, like, do well in school, have a friends, prepare yourself for your career, prepare. It's kind of like the pre-calculus, and eventually you graduate to the calculus stuff. That's the school analogy I'm going with here, I think, maybe. So now I've like gotten to the deep dive of, like, doing the analysis on how I want to structure my life as an adult. And, like, I've done adult things, but I'm not an adult because they're, like, adult mistakes, like a gambling addiction. Had that one. Major impact on life, still affects me to this day, that kind of stuff. Those are, like, big adult mistakes. Those are fun. Dealing with those is, like, adulting, I guess. And obviously, like, setting up systems, like having a balanced life around an ever-changing life that you're living, that's kind of an adult thing to do. So I had to think of, like, how do I want to structure my life going into the real world? And, like, obviously the first thing I started with, like, the huge macro stuff, big analysis of, like, overarching social and moral frameworks that guide Western society, like the, just reasonable small things, and how that kind of influences the average individual. Now, conceptualizing the average individual has been really interesting because you don't really know anyone who's, like, 100% average. So it's just kind of like you take the ranges you're given and, like, try to shrink them down, collapse the average down to a single, like, point, if that makes any sense. It's actually surprisingly difficult to conceptualize, like, an actual just, like, completely average Joe. I don't know if they exist, or I know they don't exist, but conceptualizing the person is also extremely difficult. And then how, like, these major systems that are at play kind of influence that person and how they influence me. And then the actual interesting kind of what I'd want to talk about the bulk of today, because it's the thing I put the most effort into thinking about, was as an individual. And what I've been, like, going through and pondering in terms of what it takes, how I'd classify success for myself as an individual. So I kind of broke it down into a few big categories: health and fitness, emotional health, career, social life, financial life, intellectual pursuits, and spiritual pursuits. I have this stuff all written down because, like I said, I think better. So I already had this stuff all written out. I'm reading it now, but I already had it all written out because that's kind of how I like to organize my thoughts when I'm thinking about these bigger ideas. As much fun as it is, like, the verbal or cognitive, like, internal dialogue recursion is, when you're thinking, like, 5 or 6 steps deep, in like these kind of bigger existential questions, it is unbelievably hard to recurse back 2 or 3 levels, let alone 5 or 6. So I've definitely was. So that was a small little cut there. I started rambling again, lost my train of thought. It was very, very entertaining again. This time, my cause of choice is only Monster. So really, I'm just a lost cause. I guess I can't really blame the pre-workout. Anyway, back to this kind of system I've developed and like all the ratings. The really, really big thing here that I zeroed in on, and it was a huge ego boost actually, was the health and fitness section. My exercise, I personally feel like my exercise is probably a 9 out of 10. I'm not the strongest individual. I'm not the fastest. My cardiovascular health is probably still struggling. But every month for the last 12 months, I was in better physical condition the previous month, which is like literally the only thing you can really ask for when you're going for improvement. It's like the idea, that's like, in my opinion, that's like the highest goal for how you measure improvement. And I hit it for like probably the last 24 months. It's huge. And as you can probably tell, because you know me pretty well, I am a very inherently sedentary person. Because of my biological traits of being unbelievably tall, I have a lot of biological hindrances in that area as well. So I'm starting from like the back foot already, and I've probably moved from the back foot to slightly ahead. I think I'm above average now in terms of physical ability. Now it's taken me 24 months of like active, very dedicated, guided training to get there, but I got there, which is like I said, huge ego boost. But it got me thinking, like, here's like a pretty big part of your life. Your exercise is like, I'd call 50% of your, health. If your health can be broken down into 2 major categories, it's going to be diet and exercise. That's what everyone kind of knows. That's the adage that everyone talks about. Exercise, I have crushed, and I was on the back foot. I have I'm naturally stiff ankles. Because of that, I have stiff hips. I have shoulder problems now because I sit at a computer all day long and hunch forward like this. So I have to like work on stretching that back. So my rotator cuff in this direction is really bad, which is still afflicting me. And I still go to the, I still do that kind of stuff. And I'm a naturally sedentary person who'd rather spend all day thinking and doing math problems than moving. And I have this system in place where it's like, I still, like I said, the improvement has gotten there, and I'm still unbelievably dedicated, resilient. And I was thinking about it going, I use pre-workout, and I got more pre-workout today, which is really exciting. And that's like a chemical motivator. I have my brother to rely on, so that's like a social factor, and like we go together 2 to 3 times a week. And so I can rely on him to kind of, because he's a lot more naturally motivated in that area. So I can, he can keep me accountable. He's like a person I stay accountable to. And then obviously, because of how destroyed I am physically, I have like a personal trainer, and that's another form of accountability, and it's a form of guidance. And those 3 things have developed a system for me to improve upon an area in life that I absolutely struggle with. And it's like, I was thinking, that monster's causing me issues. So really, it got me like, 1, huge ego boost, but it got me thinking, like, if I can improve this part of my life, which arguably even now is probably still the area of life I have the least natural motivation for, if I can do what I've done there, I should be able to do this for every part of life. Now, it took me 24 months to get where I am. I'd say I've been about steady for the last like 6, maybe not that. It comes and goes. Mostly because my life changes so much. So like usually by the end of the last 2 school semesters, by the end I've had my systems, or I guess including my work term. So the last 3 kind of semesters, the last 3/3 of a year. So the last 12 months, the last 2 months of every 4-month chunk going back the last 12 months, I've absolutely been dialed in at the gym. It has been fantastic. It's because I've developed the system to adjust to my new lifestyle, which changes with the changing school seasons or semesters. And that resiliency is fantastic. The progress I see, fantastic. And I'm thinking, like, how do I essentialize this? How do I distill this down into a system, or I guess superset this system to now be able to apply this to other areas of my life which are currently struggling? So on that thing I put in earlier, right now I think career and finances are probably my most weak thing. Finance probably is rated lower, mostly because of where I was and where I am now. The change, the delta there is what's causing me so much pain, for obvious reasons. Career is but career is totally doable. Professionally, my professional life as a student really struggles because I don't apply myself. I still do well which is kind of where these like bigger systems of play come in, where it's like, oh yeah, like I can get a huge academic institution to say I got a 90, I'm averaging an 85, which is very respectable in post-secondary institutions for almost everybody. But on an individual level, I can do that with like very little effort and a lot of ease, and it's probably pretty frustrating because I know that's not true for most people. So I should be aiming higher. I should be able to excel there, and I'm not. And then professionally, I don't have a job. Work in progress. I just have to I think I just have to be patient with that one. I could probably apply myself a little bit more than I have been, but that one I think I'll be okay in. And then productive hobbies is the one I kind of want to really put the pedal to the metal to, in terms of being more employable, because I've put in like an okay effort to employment, but obviously if I was like you, where it's just like, well, because of your productive hobbies or productive lifestyle, you were able to go do incredible, amazing things academically, or I guess from the career aspect of your life is like really snowballing hard. And how do I take a system of like this? I can definitely develop systems for massive improvement and success. How do I apply it to other aspects of my life? And that's a work in progress. That was kind of the last couple of days. That was what I was trying to drive home and figure out and do. Obviously, like I said, it probably still took me 12 months to implement a system for the gym and the exercise portion of health and fitness, but I got there. And so how do I do it again? That's kind of the big question I have to ask myself. And this time it's not going to be, I got the exercise stuff down, and I think it's resilient enough for me to no longer give it my full attention in terms of where I want my growth to be. I want it to be in that career, and specifically the productive hobbies, because I think that's the area that has the most room to grow. And I just have to figure out how to do it again. How do I recreate the magic that was that self-improvement? That was kind of the stuff I've been pondering. So that's been my week. Obviously, if I'm gonna reiterate anything, I just want to hear how you're doing in Austria. That's really what I'm here for. I'm just here to check in, ping the pong, if you will, and so I can hear about how your life in Europe is going so far over the first couple of days. Okay, that's everything. Later.